Very good. Very, very good. Anyone practice some mindfulness at lunch? We tried? Hey, we're works in progress. We's human. We's humans with full bellies. Excellent. I love that. Good connection at lunch? I had some good networking going on. I was hearing some good stuff. Lots of enjoyment going on. Positive energy. Love that. All right. Well, welcome back. I'm hoping you're all feeling nourished, hydrated. I'm going to put these tickets back up here. I'm going to fight with this clicker again. We're going to have a great time. All right. Our next presenter, I feel, needs no introduction at all. Suzanne Grimmesey is the PIO, Chief of Strategy and Communication Engagement, Santa Barbara County Department of Behavioral Wellness. She is so familiar to the stage of the School Wellness Summit and our communities. Suzanne has worked closely with school districts, providing training and leading school-based behavioral health, disaster and trauma response, including postvention response for suicide, student deaths, psychological first aid, and aiding in establishing ongoing support structures. Suzanne has been a very integral part of the School Wellness Summit for more than a decade and continues to be a key partner. She is going to help us keep the spotlight on workplace wellness and supporting staff well-being. Please help me give a warm welcome to Suzanne to come up to the stage and continue our conversation. Okay, and I'll leave you the clicker of wonder right up here, and your mic. Thank you.
Fun to be standing here speaking after lunch when everyone's tired and ready to go to sleep, but I get it. Before I start anything, I wanted to introduce someone else to you, who is Jenny Brule. Jenny's sitting here in the front. Raise your hand. Jenny is extraordinary. She's my professional work partner. Jenny comes with a wealth of experience and information. I first got to know Jenny after the 1-9 debris flow. Jenny led the Hope 805 crisis counseling team, and she works now with behavioral wellness. She's the senior community engagement coordinator and disaster response coordinator. And Jenny and I work arm in arm in many, if not all, things that we do. So welcome, Jenny, to be here today as well. Every one of us has moments where stress feels overwhelming, where we're trying to do whatever we can do just to make it through the day. And in education, you're carrying not only your own stress, but of course the stress of all the students that walk in your door or walk on your campus every day of the week. We're going to talk today about moving from surviving to thriving. Thriving is not about eliminating stress, it's about learning how to work within it. Today, we'll be talking about a concept that many of you may be familiar with called the window of tolerance, and tools to stay within and expand our windows. That space where we can stay grounded, where we can feel resilient, flexible, connected in the midst of challenge, so that we can move from simply surviving to truly thriving, for yourselves as well as the many students that you work with. So before we jump in and go through a few slides, I wanted to use the opportunity to give a couple other pieces of information that I thought were important. Who here, and I know we have some people from other counties, but who here has ever heard of or worked with the safety team, Casa Pacifica Safety Program? Okay, safety is extraordinary. I was a part of, I was there when it was developed 20 years ago. They're amazing. We have a lot of changes in our world today. Payment reform is one of them. And as a result, safety is no longer going to be providing those services throughout our county. They are still helping with UCSB and such, but not in the same capacity that you knew them in schools. So I wanted to say that out loud with a huge thank you for everything they've done, but also to let you know that behavioral wellness has a 24/7 access line. We have mobile crisis teams, and those teams are available to provide response to youth and children as well as adults. So if you hit a time where you would have needed to have called safety, the cards are on the table, the access line is available to you. So I wanted to share that. My next infomercial, who has ever been a part of a suicide awareness out of the darkness walk? I see a couple of hands. You have an opportunity if you have not. So whether you have personally have experience with suicide and the thoughts that go with it, whether you have a loved one maybe who has died to suicide, or whether you want to be there just to support and raise awareness and reduce stigma, we would warmly, warmly invite you to come join on October 4th is our Santa Barbara Out of the Darkness Suicide Awareness Walk. We partner with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. It takes place at Goleta Beach Park. You can come at 9 to explore the resources in the community. There's a little bit of programming, a very short walk. It's not an athletic walk. It's a very, actually, powerful, meaningful walk. A little programming, and you'll be done by noon. You can come individually. You can come as teams. You can come as a school team. It's completely free, but you have to register to attend. So on the table, there are also flyers with a QR code. And if you're from another county, I would encourage you to go to the AFSP walk site and see if there's a walk taking place in your county. Or you can come visit ours, because we'd love that. So a couple little infomercials. Okay. I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to ask you to raise your hand, but wait until I go through a couple of definitions first. I'm going to ask you what best describes your life today, surviving or thriving. So before you raise your hand, let me share the definitions. Surviving means continuing to live or exist, maintaining and keeping all the balls in the air. Thriving means flourishing, growing, developing, and being successful on your terms. So who would categorize your life right now as surviving? Okay, put your hands down. And who would categorize your life now as thriving? That's a good balance, actually. A really good balance. We're going to have some table talks later, and it will be interesting to hear people share. So I heard some statistics shared earlier, and there were some from the RAND Corporation, but I wanted to share a few as well. From the RAND Corporation findings for 2025, the percent of teachers who reported the intent to leave their jobs fell to 16% in 25 from 22% in 24. It's a good thing. The percent of teachers who reported burnout dropped from 53% from 60% in 24. That's a good thing too. However, RAND reports, and you heard this earlier, that teachers are more than twice as likely to be stressed than the average working adult. Teachers also reported working a total average of 49 hours per week on average in 2025. So this is 4 hours less than in 2024, a little less than the year prior, but it's still 9 hours more than what people are contracted for. And I have a feeling the number 49 probably sounds low to some of you. So we're out of the pandemic. We don't have any local disasters technically happening right now. We have a lot of very stressful stuff happening at a national level and a state level. But there's still a lot of things that place us in that survival mode. I'm going to introduce a few concepts. The first one I want to introduce is something called empathetic strain. Empathetic strain is what happens when care and attention is continuously extended to the struggles of others. Empathetic strain is the natural tension that builds when a person puts themselves in someone else's shoes day after day, listening, supporting, holding space for the emotions of others. Does it sound familiar to anybody in the education system? Yeah, you do it all the time, every day. It doesn't mean anything's being done wrong. It simply means that one's capacity is being stretched. When we talk about the window of tolerance concept, we'll talk more about how we can manage that stress so it doesn't turn into overwhelm and instead can be a source of strength and resilience. So some of the main signs or symptoms of empathetic strain, when someone's really been feeling it over and over, people feel drained, irritable, overly sad, worried about others, may have trouble focusing, have intrusive thoughts or self-doubt, overly involved or detached, or goes back and forth, so boundaries get impacted, fatigue, headaches, stomach aches, irritability, all those things can happen. Burnout is different than empathetic strain, and I probably don't need to describe burnout to you because you all know what that is, but I want to touch briefly to highlight the difference. Burnout can occur alongside empathetic strain, or it can occur independently. Some of the things that contribute to burnout: high expectations from a manager, from someone's organization, or it could be from the community at large, tight deadlines, more work to do than time to do it, a very strong felt external locus of control. All the things that are often unavoidable in the line of work of a teacher or someone that works in the educational system. So what's the difference exactly? Burnout, the symptoms include emotional exhaustion, cynicism, depersonalizing, and a loss of job satisfaction. Burnout is cumulative and it's relatively predictable. A vacation or a change in job can help a lot. Empathetic strain is different. It's the nature of work versus the amount of work. So it's rooted in the sustained empathetic connection, not rooted in the amount of work. It comes from the emotional load of caring deeply and consistently for others, and it can occur even when the work itself is meaningful and rewarding. So why is talking about this important? Kind of the obvious. Because in recognizing burnout and empathetic strain early, you can take the steps to prevent the longer-term impact, or having a heavy load that takes you down altogether. There are many things that can make us vulnerable to the impacts of empathetic strain. Being exposed to the traumas of students, the daily struggles that you have brought in every day, can create an emotional and a physical toll on teachers. The obvious, you know that. I met recently with a school guidance counselor who had been in their role for 6 years, and she shared with me, this is just the other day, she shared with me that something was off, felt off for her, that she loved her job, she loved her students, she loved her colleagues, but that she described starting to feel more anxious, tense, or fatigued on a regular basis when going to school, and she couldn't quite place what it was. I've heard other teachers describe not really understanding what was going on with them, not believing they were depressed, things were great in life, and not exactly burned out, but unable to pinpoint exactly how they're feeling. I think in many of these cases, empathetic strain was probably the very best definition, that stress of taking on another's suffering. So it sounds daunting, it sounds unavoidable, but the goal of better understanding the concept helps us to combat it, and it helps us to move towards thriving. This slide we wanted to share with you because on any given day, on any given week, on any given month, you're going to have different things going on in your life personally that change what your experience is with that empathetic strain. And there's things that are going to make it feel really almost unbearable for 1 week or one experience, and other things where you're like, I'm feeling pretty good today. So some of those things are at any given point what your personal vulnerabilities are, things going on in your life personally, your work-related traumatic grief or loss, your direct exposure to the stories being shared with you, indirect trauma yourself, your level of empathetic strain, right? So you might be feeling pretty good, or you might be like ready to fall over backwards. Working conditions, systems failures. It doesn't mean a system is bad. All systems have strong points and weak points. And then the socio-cultural context that you're experiencing in regards to what's being shared with you. All those things create different risk factors that shift and change for you in regards to empathetic strain. Okay, we're going to have some table talk in just a minute, but before we do that, I want to ask you to think about your personal risk factors in regards to empathetic strain, now that we've talked about it a little bit. Take a few minutes and write down 3 things that most impact you and your risk for empathetic strain. Could be a time of day, could be a sensory experience, so you're extra tired, extra hungry, that's associated with your feelings. And I'll give you a personal example. I'm a morning person, so in the morning I feel like I can take on the world. When it gets to be afternoon time, I know myself. I get a little crankier, I'm tired, a little shorter. But in knowing that, if something comes to me that's a big thing, then I'm a little more mindful, or I might grab an extra cup of coffee or whatnot. So it's about knowing yourself. But write down the 3 things that most impact you personally in regards to empathetic strain. And we'll use these in our next table exercise. And when you're done writing, if you don't mind just looking up, then I'll know that you're done, and I won't interrupt your writing. Okay. The next concept I want to talk about is something called our window of tolerance. So the goal is to better understand what a window of tolerance is, so each of us can better understand our own personal windows of tolerance. And we're going to talk about this. We're going to go through a worksheet. There's also a couple of worksheets in your folder that are geared to this same conversation and concept for children. So it might be something you keep in the back of your mind of how could you use this conversation, this exercise in your own classrooms. So the window of tolerance is a concept that describes our optimal state of arousal or stimulation in which people can function and they can thrive in everyday life. It's a zone where people can process incoming intense emotional arousal in a healthy way, allowing them to react to stress and anxiety effectively. When people are operating within that zone or within their windows of tolerance, they can effectively manage and cope with their emotions. They can learn effectively, they can play, and they can relate well to other people and themselves. It's your zone. It's the place that feels good. The concept was developed by Dr. Dan Siegel. He was the clinical professor of psychiatry at UCLA, and in 1999, he wrote a book called The Developing Mind and first introduced this concept. Some of the characteristics that he uses to describe the window of tolerance. When you're there in that zone, there's a sense of groundedness, flexibility, openness, curiosity, presence, emotional regulation, and a capacity to tolerate stressors. We all know what that feels like you're feeling good, you can take it on. When we go out of our windows of tolerance, we go one of 2 directions. We either go up to a state that's considered hyperarousal, or we go down to a state that's considered hypoarousal. The up state, that's our fight or flight response to stress. And the down state is our freeze response. So an example of how this works, if incoming stressors come within your window of tolerance, and on any given day, maybe your window is more narrow, but you feel yourself becoming agitated, angry, irritable, like can't tolerate, so maybe then you go to that fight or flight response. If you get to the feeling of complete overwhelm and all you can think about is, I just want to go home and put my blanket over my head, then you're in the hypoarousal or the overwhelmed state. The reason why this is so important to understand individually is because, I won't say we're all different, some of you may be the same, but many of us are different of what place we're in and therefore what tools we need to get us back in our window. So if I am in the place of freezing, so I want to just overwhelm, I just want to go home and jump out of this, taking a warm, soothing bath, doing deep breathing exercises is not going to bring me back into my window. It's going to keep me down there. If I'm in a place of hyperarousal, then it'll help get me in my window. If I'm in a place of overwhelm or hypoarousal, I need to bring in tools that are going to be more stimulating for me, maybe going out for a brisk walk or things like that to help bring me up. So that's the general concept of the window of tolerance. This slide is the exact same thing. There's just a lot more words on it to describe it a little bit differently. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. Now what I'd like us to do, and Jenny will be floating around the room as well and can help answer any questions, but in your binders or your folders, you have a handout that looks like this, if you could take that out. And if you could open it up to the second page, that looks like this. So again, we're going through this exercise, and in this, for those of you that wish to put in a little bit of energy to it, you will be developing your own individual plan. But keep this in mind, because this can be an exercise that you may choose to take back to your teams, or even on a child's level, we have some models of how you could take it back for kids in the classroom. But what we want you to do, the first state is the hyperarousal, second is the window of tolerance, and the third is the hypoarousal. Think about those 3 things you wrote down as examples of things that move you outside your window. But look at all of the descriptive words under each. Check off the things that resonate for you. So when I'm in the hyperarousal, I feel tense, I feel hypervigilant, I feel irritable, let's just say. And then you're going to rank them between 1 and 5. So tense, no, I don't really feel that tense. I just feel a little tense. So I'm going to give it a 2. Hypervigilant, yeah, I really feel that. So I'm going to put a 5 next to that one. And then you're going to do the same thing in each area. So what we're going to ask you to do is to take a few minutes now to go through this on your own and then have a dialogue with your table about your experience with it. And we'll ask a few people, we won't have time for all tables, to share out. So you might keep in mind nominating someone from your table that can help in that role. Okay, go ahead and take some time to fill that out. So again, after you fill it out based on you yourself, so when you go to hyperarousal, what do you feel? How would you rate it? Your window, your hypo. Then take some time to talk as a group and a table. And I'll tell you something interesting. I know there's some people in this room that have gone through this exercise before, but it's always interesting depending on kind of where your place is at the time you go through it. Sometimes it looks very different. Okay, I see some groups finishing up and being able to start in dialogue. That's great. It'll keep us all awake after lunch. So take some time to share with your team. We're going to take about 2 more minutes. 2 more minutes. Okay, I'm going to call your attention back. Finish your last thoughts and then call your attention back. And I would like to invite any table who wishes to share some of what you talked about at your table. Who would be willing to share? I'm leaning over this. Yes, Christina.
I think it was interesting to we talked about how we might fluctuate in a day between stages of window of tolerance, and then there was a big theme of hypoarousal after being at work all day, and I really love Hannah's term decision fatigue. Sorry if I'm not talking loud enough, but I love that term decision fatigue. By the time we're done at the end of the day, it's just like I don't want to walk the dogs or cook dinner or do all the things that we're supposed to do, which would be good for our mental health, right, and our wellness, and it's just really exhausting. So.
Or be asked any questions that require thinking or decision making.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. What else? Did people find commonality in where people went when they went outside of their window of tolerance? Yeah? Where? What'd you see?
We all related on the fact that it's a lot easier to feel hyperarousal or hypoarousal, and it's maybe not so easy to identify the feelings of when we're feeling good or safe in our.
I'm going to walk around with this because I think I hear what you're saying. I'd like everyone to hear.
We were just saying how it's easier to feel hyper or hypoarousal, and when we're in our window of tolerance, it's easier to just take that for granted and not really identify those feelings as much.
Yeah. What else? Yes.
I just related this to a classroom and students, and as a 9th grade health teacher, we do mindfulness every day at the beginning of class, and I'm noticing from this how it would be difficult. It's perfect for my hyperarousal students, but for some of them experiencing the hypo, this might bring them further down. So trying to figure out how to do that for different students in different places.
Yes. The nail on the head of why this is such an important concept is the only way that it works effectively is if you yourself can identify where you are based on how you feel, because then you'll know what you need to get you back. It's the same thing when you're working with your students, is helping them to do the same, right? So lots of coping skills out there, but they may not necessarily take us into our window of tolerance. Any other reflections on this? Yes. There too. Sorry about you.
I was sharing a story from a couple of weeks ago where there's a student who his favorite place is the school garden, and we were doing some garden maintenance, and he was out there with his aide, and there were a lot of caterpillars, and I was talking to him, and he was very present. He was at ease. He was curious about the caterpillars and connected to that space. But it was also his lunchtime. So his aide was saying, "Put the caterpillars back and let's go eat your lunch." And his demeanor really changed. He started shouting. He started hitting. He started saying harsh things to the aide. And I really see how he was panicking, irritable, feeling unsafe. That really threatened his window of tolerance. And then he found a pumpkin in another garden bed as he's roaming around. And that pumpkin, he was able to have that ownership. Yes, and he was able to take that, because that was a safe thing to sit down with and have it on the lunch table. He was happily eating his lunch after that, and just seeing how that helped him regulate. It was just so interesting, and to connect how we all have those moments as well.
I love that. A step further than paying attention to ourselves or teaching this to students is being able to watch and see what their reactions are, and knowing some of the things that you can do to help or suggest to help bring them back into their windows. Okay. Thank you all for taking the time. We're going to go a step further with this. And actually develop individual plans or use it as a model of how you could do this with others. But before we do that, want to talk about individual strategies. So yes, there are coping skills and tools that we want to be mindful of to bring us back into our window, whether we're coming from a hyper-aroused or a hypo-aroused state. But you also want to have a tool bag of things that you can utilize to keep yourself within your window, or ultimately broaden your window, right? The broader your window is, the less often you're going to go out of it. So I'm going to share on the next slide some examples of things, but before I do, I want to ask all of you, what are strategies that work for you individually to keep you, now that you know the concept, to keep you in that zone state of flexibility and groundedness where things can come in and you can handle it? What works for you? Sleep. Oh yes, the magic of sleep. What else? Having clear boundaries. Yep. A little easier said than done sometimes, so kudos. What else? Yes? Trying to find the silver lining, or being able to feel empowered to create your own narrative of what you see in a situation. That's great. What else?
Somebody over here said counting the days to retirement.
Count your days till retirement. Have something to look forward to. Nothing wrong with that. In fact, many times in self-care, you'll hear talk about take a vacation, plan time away, take time off. It's all great, but I'll tell you, just as beneficial is the time between now and your planning time. So you get a chance to have it in the back of your head that at the end of the month you're going to do whatever. To plan for it, to buy the right clothes for it, to keep looking at the weather. It becomes a part of things to look forward to. Anything else? Individual strategies. Yes?
Depending on who I'm with, so if I'm with my spouse or a trusted person, actually saying, this is how I'm feeling, and I might be like close to bumping out, or this is where I am, and just being able to say it, and then having that person, that trusted person there with you.
That's great. So then not only does the other person know how you're feeling, but it's great modeling too. These are great. Great, and I'm sure we could sit here all afternoon because I know you all have more. I wanted to share just some more kind of food for thought, different strategies. So self-monitoring, just like what you said, being able to say, okay, how am I feeling right now? Pay attention to it and be able to name it. Marking boundaries, a little different than setting boundaries, but marking boundaries in your day. And I think especially in your field, so important. And what this means is have almost a ritualistic way of how do you start your day. I always start my day with a cup of coffee. I always sit down and journal for 10 minutes before anything. I start with yoga. I listen to a certain song or a book on tape on my way to work, something that starts your day, that boundary. And then the same thing at the other end, a way to close your day. So you take your dog for a walk every day at 5. You have a routine of making dinner together with your kids or your family. You get your exercise in. You listen to certain music on your way home. I don't know. But marking your boundaries, start and end of the day, is so important. Expressing gratitude, and sometimes we have to be more intentional with that. But that also helps to strengthen relationships. But expressing gratitude, managing the trauma inputs, and this is really important, I think, right now. Those are things like taking a social media break, or even a 0 social media day, or turning off the TV for the news at night, or choosing not to scroll through the news. That way you can manage the type of input that comes into your brain and body. Building your support networks, which I think is actually as, if not more important than exercise. Have those people in your life that you know are your support networks. You may not need to touch on them every day or every week, but build them so that you know that they're there. Engage in reflective meaning making. So it helps to reconcile differences. It helps with incongruences in our beliefs, but it helps us to integrate to our personal and our professional abilities. So engage in reflective meaning making. So X just happened. Ugh, why? I wonder why that happened. And that's kind of along the line of creating your own silver lining, your own storytelling, helping to find meaning. Being your own story editor, that's okay to do. And it can actually create resilience. And knowing what your individual strategies are and enacting them. So just some examples, but there's a lot. Okay, so as we've been saying, part of developing our individual plan includes identifying our own personal strategies for self-care, for keeping yourself in or broadening your window of tolerance. So the next thing we're gonna have you do at your table is on page 3, it says, I notice I am in my window of tolerance when. So you're going to jot down some things that are reflective of that. My window closes when I am, write that in. Things I can do when I'm hyper-aroused. Things I can do when I'm hypo-aroused. Now on the very last page, and this is for a reference, and this list could be 25 pages long, but here are some examples of down-regulating exercises, up-regulating exercises, and some general coping skills. So if you're feeling lack of creativity after lunch late in the afternoon, this page can be helpful. So we're going to ask you now to take some time to fill that out for yourself. It does not have to be perfect. And when you finish filling it out, to come back to your table and talk about it. What you noticed, what you saw, and Jenny and I will rove around. So go. So again, as you work towards completing your own individual plan, share with your table your thoughts, what you put on your plan, your learnings, your reflections. I see people referencing the 4th page. That's great. Helpful. Okay, and as you start to finish, start connecting with others at your table. We're going to take 2 more minutes in our groups. About 1 more minute. Okay, I'm going to bring us back to the larger group. I'm going to bring us back to the larger group. It's great to see the dialogue. Thank you all for investing in it and having that chat with your table. We've got some conversations going really strong. Okay. Can I ask any table that would be willing to share out some of the conversation that you had at your table? And I will come around with the mic. Conversations, reflections, things you learned.
One thing that we just came out of, like right at the end of our conversation, is that I find that many of us like resist taking that action to get us back to our window. There's always this initial like block, but then you do it and you're like, oh wow, I feel great, you know. But what is that? And it's like, how do you? I guess part of that is recognizing it, right?
It's a really good observation. Yes, I think it's very much recognizing it. That's I mean, we're all talking about the window of tolerance, and we have this worksheet in front of us, but that's not the normal language people normally have. You just know how you feel and what your body's telling you what you want to do. So if you go to that hypo-regulating place, you just want to go home and put a blanket over your head, and you're not paying attention to the need to get back, you're going to go home and do just that. So you're right, it's paying attention to it. And then there may be times where we need that as a coping skill.
Okay, so I'm Gloria, and I teach 3rd grade and in Goleta. Okay, so I guess I'll stand. Okay, so one thing that we talked about was, now that I'm older and my kids are adults, it's easy for me to say that whoever I'm with, I'm present with that person. I don't look at my phone, I don't look at my watch, I don't have my computer out. I am present with that person, and I put my energy towards that person, because I can't change what happened in the past, and I don't know what's going to happen in the future, so I'm not going to put my energy there. I'm going to put my energy in the present and let that build and grow. Or whatever activity I'm doing, I'm going to put my energy there. Now, for my friends who have kids who are months old, it's a little different, because I remember eating lots of bagels. I remember just getting to work and putting myself together, like, yay, I was really happy about that. And so for my friends who have young kids, I told them, even when you're in the state of hyper arousal and hypo arousal, you're still learning something. Like you're still going to be okay. You're still learning something in those areas, and also be kind to yourself. My kids grew up in a time where there was no social media, so I didn't have to look at pictures of everybody's perfect lives. When I went to my friends' homes, all of our homes looked like a bomb went off. None of us wore makeup. You know, we didn't look glamorous, and we supported each other in that way, and that's how I think we kind of got through it, is that we had our support network. So for those of you who have young kids, be kind to yourself and know that all of that you see on social media, you know, it's all staged. So just to remember all of that and to just be kind to yourself. I think that's really important. You don't have to do it perfectly, and now that my children are older, they said, you know, thank you so much. We didn't care what you looked like. We didn't care how much you weighed. We didn't care whether or not you had makeup on. We didn't care about going on vacations. We didn't care about any of that. We just wanted to be with you. And now that they're adults, that's what they have actually told us. And my daughter actually apologized to me. Yay! For, you know, her different phases that she went through. So it all works out.
I'm Maria. Gloria was at our table, and I just wanted to highlight what she said because that really impacted me. I'm the one who has an 8-month-old and a 2-year-old, and again, just hitting what she said, being present, focusing on that moment, and being kind to yourself, thinking those positive thoughts too.
Thank you. Anyone else? Any other reflections from your table?
I really liked, we talked about when you're having an emotion and you're in that maybe hyper-aroused state, like recognizing that emotion and allowing yourself to have that emotion. And you said, like, give yourself 5 minutes. Just allow yourself to sit in that emotion and really feel it. And then you can let it go. Because I think sometimes if we keep holding on to it, it just will keep perpetuating. And then we also talked about, like, we share an office. And so when one of us starts getting hyper aroused, maybe the other one starts. And so trying to mirror off each other and like bring each other down. And she'll take me for a walk and we'll calm down. And I think it's nice having people in there that can kind of mirror and you can reflect with them.
Love it. Thank you. Anyone else? But on the other side of our room, any reflections, anything anyone would like to share? Tired, food settling in, thinking about how to mark your day at the end. Okay. Well, thank you. And I hope that this can be not only, maybe it's stuff that every one of you knew everything about, and that would be perfectly fine. But maybe it can serve as a tool that you can use elsewhere, maybe for the kids that you have in your classrooms. We've got some child-friendly versions. But wanted to toss out a couple of questions just as we come to a close. My questions are, for anyone that would like to answer, how might you implement, what might change as a result of any of the strategies that you've had a chance to learn about, to write about, to explore with your table? And of those, are there any that you can start or do differently as soon as next week? So back to the first question. Is there anyone in this room that says, you know what, I'm thinking I might do something a little differently? Yes.
So I notice I go on my phone a lot when I'm stressed, but it doesn't actually help. It just kind of blocks everything else out, but then I get stressed about what I'm looking at and things like that. So even my kids will be like, get off your phone and play, or whatever, but sometimes they're just too much at that time. So right now I'm thinking I need to just set my phone away and not have it with me at all times.
So that's something you could start as soon as next week if you wanted. Be curious to even have a little log and kind of pay attention to how you're feeling, phone free. Yeah, that's great. What else?
Start identifying if I'm hyper or hypo. I like that I've shared language with the staff person so I can kind of check it.
It's a great language to have within a team, because then other people understand why you're employing certain coping strategies to help, because they know right where you are. That's great. And that's something you could start as soon as next week. During your next one-on-one, yeah. Yeah. Because a coworker might recognize before you even do that you've gone out of your zone, out of your window. Anyone else? Any other strategies that you feel like you could take away and put into play? Yes?
I think I'm going to clarify my mark boundaries.
Clarify your marking boundaries?
Marking boundaries,
Yeah.
I have them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the clarifying marking boundaries is way more powerful than I think people give intent for. So it's really founded on our brains are full of a lot of stuff. And our brains are always working and always thinking, and they're always working to protect us, right? Physically, psychologically, emotionally, like they're always on overdrive and lookout. So the more that we can give a structure to our day, and it can be minimal, it doesn't mean you have to plan every half an hour, the less our brains have to work, and the more they know what to expect. We were talking about healthy eating earlier, and if you eat meals throughout the day, your body focuses less on being hungry. It's the same thing with our brains. So if it's as simple as marking your boundaries for your day, and your brain knows what to expect at the start of the day, your brain knows what to expect at the end of the day. It just allows your brain to kind of exhale. So it's great. I love it when I hear people identify that. Any other thoughts? Even a lumberjack has to sharpen his axe. Yeah.
And just sharpening your axe so that you have sharp axe that you have to work day and night.
I love that. So even for those that couldn't hear, even a lumberjack has to sharpen his axe, meaning at some point he has to stop working, sharpen his axe. You can't just keep going day after day, because then you're not going to be productive, because your axe will not be sharp.
You have to mark your boundaries, and there will come a time, and for every single person, it will be at a different point in your life.
I love it. You guys are a great group. All right. I don't think I need to share any of this with you. It's all things you know, but I always like to close with just the reminders. So we talked about the things that are helpful to bring us to downregulate us when we're hyperregulated or hyperaroused, and how to upregulate when we're hypoaroused. But there's the ongoing care that's so important, the stuff that keeps us in our windows, the stuff that's so simple that it oftentimes gets forgotten. So remembering that in the field of education, as school teachers, you're going to be exposed, you are, not you're going to be, you are exposed on a regular basis to pretty high intense stuff, right? Stories from students, maybe it's from coworkers, but just to be aware that that is something that occurs. So use self-care plans each evening. That might be a part of marking your boundary at the end of the day. It might be in addition to, but don't deprive yourself of that. Have something nice you're going to do for yourself every evening, whatever it might be. Share your stories and experiences. There is so much power in connection. And we all have people that we share things with, and we debrief after a long day. But to be able to share your stories with others that really get it, they're walking in the same shoes as you, is even more powerful. So keep all your friends, keep all that sharing, but don't underestimate the power of sharing stories within those that work in the same field as you. your own self-care. So someone said sleep earlier. Sleep is so important for so many reasons, but sleep, making sure we're mindful of eating. I love the mindful eating exercise and handout that we had earlier. Keeping yourself hydrated, like just making sure that you're incorporating all those things in. And then taking inventory of your windows of tolerance and changes. So it's a framework that you can use as a guide and to take inventory. You can even do it as a team. And in closing, I just want to close by saying that thriving is not about avoiding challenges. I think everyone in this room knows that. It's about noticing when and where we're stretched and getting ourselves back into that window of tolerance. Because it's in that space that we reconnect with our own internal strength, with our hope, and ultimately with our resilience. Strength doesn't come from what we can't control. It comes from how we respond, how we recover, and how we rise back again. And we have a very resilient community, and I know everyone in this room is as well, so it's just a reminder. So I want to close with a quote, one that I'm sure everyone here has heard before. It's a quote from Helen Keller. She says, "Although the world is full of suffering, it's also full of overcoming it." Very simple, but a very good reminder. I hope you'll leave this year's summit, our 12th annual School Wellness Summit, with maybe just one more, or maybe more tools for surviving, tools for going beyond surviving, tools for thriving, because our community needs you. Thank you all for all the work that you do.
It's a trick. The mic and the clicker both are like, we need some mindful practices today. I'm kidding. Thank you so much, Suzanne. It's always such a pleasure to get to hear you speak. I always learn something every time I get to hear you. And just thank you. Did anyone else, maybe this was just me, but before you started speaking, I was like, sweet, she's going to tell us all the secrets. And I don't know why I thought it was going to be something like super like, I've never heard these things before. And it was so tangible. And I love that because it's not something that we've never heard. It's not something that we can't do. These are things that are super relatable. These are things that we have the power to do. These are things that are not super costly or super difficult. These are things that we can pick up and do with each other in our meetings, in our classrooms. And I really needed to hear that because I think sometimes we come up with the most ridiculous reasons why we can't do them. And so to hear that there are things that we have the power to do that are very tangible, that are very easy, we just have to remember what they are and how we can incorporate them into our classrooms or our office spaces. And I just really appreciate that. So thank you so much, Suzanne. It's just always so wonderful. And to Jenny as well. There we are, back up front. Thank you to Jenny, too, helping identify our own window of tolerance, providing these tips and tools today, tomorrow, and every day to come. So easy to implement. Just thank you both. Mindfulness, breathing, physical activity, soothing your senses, challenging your thoughts, writing things down. These sure are tips that we can all take away, share with others, as well as creating our plan to be able to help put us in a window of tolerance, recognizing that it really is ongoing care. So thank you both so much, helping us all be more focused towards adults, our staff wellness, and we can really help support our students and apply those in the classroom. So thank you both for being here today and your continued support throughout the years. You both really are just true partners, and we really appreciate you doing this work with us.